Hi, and welcome back to What's on Her Plate podcast. My name's Jamie Easton, and this is where we tell stories of vulnerability and victory. Today, I'm going to start with a trigger warning. We are going to go into some topics that may bring up some things of personal experience in your life. I want to let you know that if you are sensitive to any parts of anxiety, depression, body dysmorphia, eating disorders, to come back to a later episode or come back to this episode when you think you have the openness and the sensitivity to be able to hear my journey. My journey is just my personal experience. This is not medical advice, and just want to give you guys that warning. And my heart is to always protect you and your life and your journey. And my story can be completely different from yours, but really want to bring in just to those who may want to feel seen and understood, and maybe part of my story and journey can relate to you. So to kind of go into the appetizer and a little bit of the beginning on backstory, I'm 31 years old and I was raised in a culture where sex sells. My upbringing, this is the time of the Victoria's Secret angels. This is when thigh gaps are a big deal. I first started to become aware of my body, looks, and everything probably in middle school. This is where you start to kind of like boys. I had my first boyfriend in middle school, and I started to kind of become a little more aware of aesthetics and who I was and fitness. And I think the big thing was I got braces, and all of a sudden I was a lot more self-aware of who I was. But to give you an idea of what I really looked like in middle school, I would crimp my hair every day. I had braces, was still trying to figure out style. I grew up in Idaho, so style really wasn't a thing. I was really into sports. I was a cheerleader, played tennis, lacrosse, all of that. But I really had this massive leap going from middle school to high school. So the summer between middle school and high school, I got my braces off. I learned how to straighten my hair. I learned how to curl my hair. And I really kind of started tapping into my style a little bit more. I was the girl who went into high school that everyone was like, oh my gosh, like she grew up. I went into high school. I was a freshman and my sister was a junior. And before, when I was around my sister and her friends, it was a lot of like, oh, that's Taylor's little sister. But now at this thing, people were coming to my sister being like, whoa, Taylor, like your little sister. I started to get attention from guys, and I started to understand the whole aspect of beauty and sex selling, and that awareness opened up. One of the things that I started to experience that one was actually a really kind of shocking experience and I couldn't really comprehend. But I grew up kind of like with a booty, and especially being in cheerleading and having to use leg muscles and everything, I would wear normal clothes and whatever. That being said, in high school, there started to be a game among boys that they would get points if they would smack my butt throughout the day. And that was like my first intro into learning that my body is desired. I felt like violated because people were touching me, especially in places that they didn't have permission. The teachers and any staff didn't do anything about it. I would tell my parents and they're like, yeah, well, you have a Smith butt, which is like my mom's side of the family. And it was just kind of like, this is what it is. Alongside all of this is happening, I'm starting to hear guys now talk about other girls in my grade and older grades and what their bodies were like. And this was like the first time I had ever heard a guy talk poorly about a girl's body. I feel like all public school desks and chairs were the same, where like the desk and chair is connected and it has the one sidebar on the right and then you have like a wire rack underneath and it's just that plastic chair. Well, a lot of people would slump down in the chair, so your knees would be up kind of like at a triangle angle. But if you like sat up, you're like very properly positioned in like a 90-degree, and your legs, if you were wearing shorts, would like have that 90-degree angle. Well, a girl next to me who's a good friend of mine was sitting next to me, and a guy 2 rows over whispered to his friend of, oh my gosh, do you see that girl's cottage cheese thighs? I was like just appalled that that was how guys talk about women's bodies negatively. It was this massive eye-opener of putting a ton of attention onto looks, aesthetic. And really, I started to kind of fall into society wanting attention and being desired. If you go into some of my previous episodes, you know that I really drove my life off performance. I thought performance equals love because that's how it was shown to me. So learning that your body could be part of performance kind of got activated in those high school years of learning, oh, I can use my body to perform and to get my needs met and to get attention. And it started to become just part of my awareness on what was going on. Now, if we're looking at culture on what was being celebrated, like I mentioned earlier, it was like the Victoria's Secret model. Like that was the top, what every girl was looking at. You also then had stores like Abercrombie and Hollister who have these models that would stand, which thinking back, this is so wild. You'd have these like models stand in front of the store to like ploy people to come in and to come shop. Half the time the girls were in bikinis and the guys were shirtless. All their packaging and bags, guys shirtless or girls again in bikinis, and that were these big posters all over, and it was like selling this lifestyle of look at me, look how we dress our models, we are like the top cool brand to be in. It started to like kind of send me on a spiral where I started to see things become really hard and difficult in my life. I was now in high school preparing for college. I'm the youngest of 3, and so my parents told me that my 2 older siblings had completely used all of the college scholarship money, and if I wanted to go to college and have it paid for, I had to do it through winning something, getting a college scholarship through grades, winning awards, doing extracurriculars. And so one night I was like, I just want to find out who gives the most money. I Googled who gives women the most college scholarship money, and pageantry popped up. And my parents, I pitched it to them and they're like, no way, we're not putting you in that. I used to beg growing up to be in like modeling and acting and all of this, and my parents always put a hard no on it. But they saw that if you won top 5 in your state, you automatically won $40,000 in college scholarship. And so that was like my kind of like hook in the water with my parents of, hey, if I do this, I basically can go pay for my college. My parents invested into the first year. I was a freshman in high school. We go to kind of like the pageant lady in town. I get a dress. She gives me kind of basic on how pageants really run. A lot of what the public actually doesn't know, majority of your pageant score actually comes not on stage. It becomes in these interview conversations. And so 70% of your score happens off stage, but the 30% that everyone sees, which is ball gown and bikini and opening number and closing questions, are really kind of the final show aspect. But you are, standing on stage in heels and a bikini getting judged on your physique. So my parents were always trying to protect me in that manner, but me saying, hey, I'm going to pay for my college. Let me like have a whack at this. Let's see how it goes. I go and compete my first year, and I end up making top 5 and end up getting that $40,000 scholarship. And they were blown away. They're like, this is insane. This is unreal. And we end up really investing into pageantry through high school. In pageantry, if you want to be competitive, it's just like any other type of sport or industry. There's politics involved. There's like who you're associated with by training, whether you're training physically or through interview, where you're getting your dress from, how you kind of like work the system. Throughout it, you train 10 months out of the year. You really only get like a 2-month off window after if you don't win a title to kind of decompress between seasons. And then you would train 10 months. And that training looked like going to interview training, going to walking training, and then physically training. So I worked with a personal trainer since I was 14, 15 years old, that I would go to the gym and they would look at, hey, we need to tighten your back muscles here. We need to work on the thigh gap. Hey, there's, your arms need to be tighter. We want to work on getting that shoulder cuff. Hey, we need to have those like oblique V lines because it points down and it elongates your body. And so now I have adults critiquing and training my body at such a young age. Alongside physically training, you also have to match it with food and your nutrition value. And I started doing crazy things at a very, very young age. They would always start me with this like 7-day fast diet where the first 2 days, all you eat are like essentially vegetable soup. It's like almost like a bone broth diet. And then they allow you to have like meat and bananas added into it. And then you're allowed by the 7th day to essentially eat like a whole foods diet. But at 14, 15, 16 years old, having me have to essentially fast on like vegetable soup, where I'm sitting down at the lunch table with my friends and they're asking what I'm eating and I'm literally sipping broth, was actually so wild. This was the moment where I started to realize how much my body was idolized and how much I started to really be crippled by body dysmorphia and the anxiety and control and depression around having an unhealthy relationship with food. It was this one morning, my parents had gotten divorced. So at this point, I'm probably 16 or 17 years old. I'm training for a pageant. We were probably a few months out, and my mom had gone to a local bakery and like bought the day old bagels, and she bought it for my sister to have breakfast sandwiches in the morning. And I'd come home from school and I was starving, and all that sounded good was not chicken, broccoli, and rice, but it was a bagel and cream cheese. So I walk into the pantry and I grab a bagel, and by the time I walk out, I have both my mom and my sister standing in the kitchen screaming at me to put the bagel away. And they were like, "You can't eat that. You're training. Like, you can't put that in your body." And that was the moment that food no longer became energy, but it became an enemy. And I now had started to go into being able to tell you every nutrition fact. An apple is 90 to 110 calories if it's this brand of apple and if it's this type, and that's going to convert to this much energy, meaning I need to exercise this much. So if I want to have an apple, I need to go run a mile. If I put peanut butter on that, these types of fats are going to add, and I can't have fat, so I need to just get the peanut butter powder and I mix it with water because it's less calories. And I started to have this insane unhealthy relationship with food, and it controlled me. Used to pride myself that I never had fast food. Our friends after football games would go to I grew up in a small town. We had a McDonald's, but we would have to drive outside of the town to go get any fast food. And our friends would go get Jack in the Box, or when a Taco Bell finally came in, it was this huge deal. And I would sit there and I would just watch my friends eat, and they would just be like, "You're not going to get something?" And I would look at them disgusted, thinking I was better than them or something. It really started to control my life in little ways that I didn't fully understand. Back to kind of the original conversation where I started to understand that in middle school and high school that my body had power. I used my looks and everything to get attention from men. One thing that I'm not proud of, but is part of my story is, well, if I can give myself to you, then you're going to love me. I mean, granted, I dated one guy majority of high school, but had then dated other guys kind of at the end of that and into college. I knew of well, if I'm hot, then you'll be attracted to me. And then now if I give myself to you sexually, you'll like me even more. How can I have my body in a way that's prime for you to be attracted to it? And I started to really fall into all of these lies that aren't actually fulfilling what my heart really wanted, which was just to know that I was accepted and loved and already chosen and already desired and already loved on in these ways that I think I had to use my body to get. And so whether it was getting through college and being my body is the turning point to my career and my schooling, and so I have to control things that way. If my body was used in relationship with men of, hey, if I want to have love, I have to look a certain way. And similarly with friends of, hey, if I want my friends to have fun opportunities, I know how to use my looks and everything to get what we want. Basic example is, which is so wild that I learned how to manipulate with my body at such a young age. But there's all these cool county fairs that happen in Idaho, and all the radio stations always do free tickets to the concerts that come. We would always go put our tickets in for a raffle. And one time I won VIP tickets to a Hunter Hayes concert, and it only gave me 2 tickets, but I had 3 friends with me. And I turned to my 2 friends and I was like, well, I'm not going to do this alone. So let me go work some magic and I'll go make it happen. And I knew that if I came up and was this sweet girl and I kind of used my looks and I used my personality, I would be able to get what I want. And I walked up to the guy running the radio booth and I was so thank you so much for, these 2 tickets, but I have 2 additional friends. And so I won't accept these unless they can come with me. And I'm like trying to like use this magic, and it worked. And it would get validated because now I have 3 VIP tickets and now dinner with him before the show on me just using less, essentially, of like, hey, I can lust people into getting what I want and getting what I need. And it breaks my heart that that's how I thought the ecosystem of the world works. And life outside of God works that way. And it's such a trap and it's such a lie. And it's something that really ate me alive for a long, long time. I would look in the mirror and I would look at my thighs and I would look at my waist and I would look at my skin and I would talk so poorly to myself. And there's so much power in your voice, in your tongue, in what you say, what you think, what you believe. And I would destroy myself with my thoughts and with my words. And I didn't know how to have a beautiful relationship with self. And that carried on for a long, long time, even into the point of once I had gotten married, I'm still living this way, and like you can hide it through performance and loving the Lord, having great community, having great friends, having a great job. No one really knows what your relationship with food is like or your relationship with self is like until they become intimate and close with you. And once I got married, I became very, very sick. This is to my ex-husband. And I'll go into this in maybe a later conversation, but was being tormented by a spirit that really was attacking myself. And it would wake me up at 3 a.m. every night and I would shake until I either would be so exhausted and fall back asleep, or I would put on worship and like pray in tongues and essentially fight it away. But it was so debilitating to my body. I ended up losing 40 pounds and I became severely sick to the point where like my dad flew in and sat me down and is like, you do not look okay. And someone who was close to me and knew me could see that I was struggling. But the rest of the world was saying comments on, oh, you look skinny, girl, what are you doing? Like, oh, and at this point now I'm signed with a modeling agency, Post Pageants, and was booking modeling jobs. And everyone's like, oh, wow, that looks so good on you. Like, what have you done? Or like, oh, girl, your jawline is so snatched right now. I am being glorified in the world, but those closest to me were like, you're not okay. What is going on? That was the first time in my life where I had to look at my relationship with self and food, because anytime I would put something in my mouth, I would get nauseous and feel like I had to throw up. And food no longer became an enjoyment, but it became survival. And I was essentially like dying. And I started to then look at, okay, how has my relationship with food been up until this point? And I started to reflect back onto, wow, I used to binge. I would set these like really sharp, hey, I'm going to diet for pageants and I'm going to, lose 5 pounds and I'm going to fit into this size and I'm going to be a size 0 or size 2. And in order to get there, I'm going to go on a calorie deficit and I'm going to work out a ton. And then all of a sudden I would have those bagel moments. And all I would just want would be a bagel or dessert or just like extra portions of food. And I would go and I would binge into the point that I was so stuffed. And then I would live in this feeling of shame because I would feel just disgusting. And then I would talk poorly over myself. And then it would start this whole thing on like, okay, well, I have to do it over again because I just consumed 3,000 calories in a setting. And I can't do that. So now I'm going to restrict the next day. And I would see where I would go on these patterns. Fast forward to when I was married and got really sick, I couldn't do those patterns anymore. And I couldn't binge and I couldn't restrict because I couldn't even eat. And eventually I went through so many different, I would get endoscopies and colonoscopies, and we were trying to figure out what's wrong. And they would be like, maybe it's celiacs, maybe it's Crohn's, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. I ended up getting connected to this incredible chiropractor that does not only physical healing, but it does fascia release and trauma release. And I went into an appointment one day and he actually started calling out kind of prophetically other things that had happened in my life because he could see how my body was reacting. We ended up doing multiple sessions of kind of chiropractic and release work and also just a ton of prayer. And after one session, he goes, I want you to leave here and go order a pizza. And I want you to go eat that pizza. And after months, almost a year and a half of not being able to eat and becoming frail and feel like I was dying, I finally saw that food was energy, and it was something that is beautiful to my body and not something that I get to control. And if I really look back, is food was just a great thing, and my body was just like a thing that I could control. I have chaos happening everywhere else in my life, but I have control over this. After that process was the first time of, okay, I really want to go into having a healthy relationship with food, and how do I do that? And so kind of spent then the next 2-3 years of learning to have a healthy relationship with food, learning how to nourish my body, learning how to not shame if I want to, treat myself. So now, this is actually so funny, I am the friend that people call when they want to go have a sweet treat or want permission. And this actually really cracks me up. I had a friend the other day I was like, oh, what are you up to? And she goes, I just really want to get McDonald's and I want to get fries and a Coke. I'm like, then go get fries and a Coke. What? And I was like, do you have shame around this? And I'm like, wow, I used to have so much shame around wanting to go get a Diet Coke and fries. I used to revolve my whole world around that. It's such a gift that I got to spend those years on really actually practicing how do I have a healthy relationship with food. And it was definitely a trial and error. It was definitely seeking out different resources. There's this woman that I found on social media who's really freeing to me. Her name's Jessica Ash, and her handle is Jessica Ash Wellness. And I ended up buying her course. She is someone who really brought in a new perspective on food for me. One of the things that she talks about is regulating your cortisol and your melatonin and how to reset your circadian rhythm. And so her first step of advice is having a very nourishing scoop of whole milk, honey, basic ingredients, ice cream before bed. She goes, this is going to set your melatonin. It's going to help you sleep better. It's going to drop your cortisol so you actually can help in your circadian rhythm. So that was the first really beautiful thing that this woman brought into my life, was starting to have a scoop of ice cream before bed. And I was like, you could have never caught me 5 years ago doing this. And now being able to do this was beautiful and amazing and really, really freeing. And it was something that I started shouting from the rooftop to all my friends. Now kind of transitioning mainly into the main course on what a lot of women experience now going into becoming a mother, and that whole body transition and what happens on body image, growing a child, post-growing a child in your postpartum phases, and the ever-changing evolution as you just mature. So after kind of creating that great relationship with food prior to getting pregnant, when I got pregnant, I was sick the whole time. The 9-10 months basically lived off of Del Taco French fries, sour gummy worms, and green apples because I had morning sickness the whole time. And whoever calls it morning sickness is lying, because I got sick every time of the day. Would get woken up at midnight, at 7 a.m., 3 in the afternoon. I was just nauseous all the time. That then started having me freak out about food again, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm growing a human. I need to eat. I need to nourish myself so I can nourish my child. And how do I do this? But I'm so sick and everything makes me nauseous. And there was even this time where my ex-husband had made shrimp, and it literally was the most disgusting smell I could ever smell in my entire life. And I made him bleach the whole house because bleach was better than the smell of shrimp. But it's now it's testing in my relationship with food, because food became an enemy again. Also, I'm watching my body change like crazy. Your boobs get huge. You start to get a belly. You start freaking out about stretch marks of oh my gosh, I don't want to get stretch marks. And you buy every cream and every oil, and you're so exhausted because you're growing a human. So you're not working out the same that you used to. The only concern is, hey, can I make sure I have a healthy child? But all of that temptation on body dysmorphia starts to really kind of mess with you, and it messed with me. Because you're carrying so much weight in the front, you lose your butt muscles and you start to get puffy and your water retention is different. I loved the gift of being able to carry my son, but that whole body aspect of loving myself was not really there. And once then I had him, and now postpartum, there's that massive bounce back culture of 6 weeks, get the clear. And for me, I was single. I had gotten a divorce through my pregnancy, so I wasn't worried about the 6-week appointment to be intimate with my partner again, because I didn't have a partner. The 6-week appointment was for me of, can I start working out again? I looked back and I took a video probably 3 weeks postpartum where it looks like I have abs, and was oh, your body just reverts back to whatever. Like, that is so unhealthy. The body goes through so much to create a human, and like the size of the wound you have from your placenta is the size of a basketball. And to think about how I look versus how I feel and heal is just actually crazy. And so that was like a really big mental battle, because I hadn't healed those aspects of my heart and my mind yet on loving myself and understanding how loved I already was. And so now, being a single mom, being postpartum, taking care of my son, but like wanting to date again and all of this, I then am looking at, okay, my body is a thing I can control again, and the body is a thing that I can use to get my needs met, and started to kind of fall into that trap again, and fall into the fitness trap and the diet culture trap. And there's always a trend, there's always a fad. Even right now, the massive fad is peptides. Everyone's on GLP-1s and peptides and crash diets, and there's always a scheme to sell. Because again, people can convince you to not love yourself well. And so they can give you every shortcut, every backdoor thing to get you to what you think you need to be at to get your control and your needs met. But that's just not how it works. About like 2 years after being postpartum is when I started to really be like, wow, I have horrible self-talk. This is not going to serve me, because it's honestly feeding anxiety and depression in my life, and I need to do something about it. I've talked about this in prior episodes, but going to inner healing is one of the most pivotal things for my health. Inner healing is a style of therapy that you do with someone who's trained up in usually a church or a ministry that is specific in prayer ministry. They study different aspects of the Bible that talk about inner vows, judgment, lies, abuse, trauma, different spirits, clean, unclean. And they help you kind of go through what are your true beliefs. And so through these inner healing sessions, I really learned that I had horrible beliefs about myself, because again, it was stemming back to that deep root of performance. Performance equals love. My body was attached to that performance. I needed to part ways with it. And so after multiple sessions, I've been in inner healing 9-10 years now, but after some true deep sessions of really realizing I am so loved. I am so chosen. God created me on this earth to make an impact for Him. And it doesn't matter what I look like. It's mattered how I steward myself. And stewarding myself doesn't look like hating myself, doesn't look like talking negatively to myself, doesn't look like restricting myself, doesn't look like controlling through binging and shaming. The amount of self-shame I put on myself was wild. And so there's some really beautiful sessions that the Lord actually took me through on my personal beauty and what He had plans for, and the way He crafted me and made me, brought me into His ecosystem of the beauty of being a reflection of Him, and also brought me into just the deep, deep hole in my heart that I didn't fully understand Him, and I didn't fully understand how chosen I was by Him. Coming into these moments and coming into the full understanding of how chosen I am, how loved I am, and how that God has a massive call on my life, stripped away all of the need from getting gratification from others and people and opportunities and what culture and society says and gives us value. And it returned me back to God's design, which was to get my value and identity and purpose from Him. That being said, it is a constant daily battle that I now have to, I will still get out of the shower and look in the mirror, and my first thought, in full honesty and transparency, will be to pick apart my body, will be to feel negatively about myself. And I have to do disciplined principles of affirmations and self-talk and reminders of, oh my gosh, I brought a human into this world. This body has the ability to walk, has the ability to hug, has the ability to carry my son, has the ability to stand in the kitchen and cook a meal. All of these different aspects that are simple, even the aspect of breathing and sleeping. These are all insane miracles that I have to go back to those simple points of gratitude and thank the Lord on how He made me and the purpose purpose of my creation so that I can get out of that crazy headspace. As I kind of step into this, one of the big things that I really focus on is how do I translate that into my kids? How do I translate loving yourself to Lincoln, my son? A lot of the things that I'll have to catch myself in is like when I put on an outfit or when I'm getting ready or when I put makeup on, how do I classify these things to him? And how do I empower him from a male perspective to not fall in that trap from a male side, height and muscle and strength and sports ability and all of that is really praised from a male perspective. And how do I bring in and bring that gratitude language to him at such a young age? I'm learning to be a lot more conscious of the words that I'm affirming him in. Hey, you're really fast and that's awesome. Like, let's thank God for how fast you are and your ability. And really, instead of it being something that he's self-made in, I'm really trying to teach him how to give thanks to the Lord for those abilities and really saying that he gets those abilities from the Lord. And it's something that doesn't define who he is. And I think even coming into him now stepping into sports and he's starting to experience winning and losing and that there's going to be kids that are faster and quicker than him, really talking into identity and really who he is at the core and not his abilities and his looks is something that I'm starting to really learn on. One of these things I was actually just recommended a parenting book from a mom at music class last night, and it was talking about how kids act, whether if they are acting out, it's because they're disconnected from connection. And it just sparked this whole thing in my mind of the best place to be is in connection. And when we can be in connection with the Father, it's so much easier to then be in connection with self. And so I'm trying to do that in my own life. I'm trying to now teach Lincoln how to do that as well. And as I step into all of these things, it's so much easier to look at culture, to look at these sayings, to look at these fads, and have a real good self-evaluation of, I don't need that. That's trying to get me to believe something about myself that isn't true. It's a lot easier said than done. And coming into a place of connection with self and connection with the Lord is work. It takes discipline, it takes time, and it takes trust. And that's where faith really comes into. But little things that have really helped me in building all of that, not only trust with the Lord, but trust with myself, is keeping promises and allowing myself to meditate on the things that are good. So I meditate on God's word a ton. I'll replay worship songs that just talk about who he is and our purpose and our love and need for him. And then little things that I do that actually have nothing to do with my body, but build self-confidence in myself, is keeping promises to myself. Each day I'll try to do like one little promise, even if that promise is as simple as making my bed before I leave the house. It's little things that reinstate confidence in myself and my ability of who I am that really help me feel connected. I also, a massive thing to stay connected to myself is I need everyone who is close to me or works with me know that like I need a good 30 minutes to go outside, sit in the sun and touch grass. That's a huge thing for me to like get grounded again and get connected into my body. Really come into that place of, am I connected? Am I speaking highly of myself to myself? And is there any other area, which I would love to do a further podcast on this, but is there any area that I need to forgive myself for or release any shame for? And usually when I'm in those moments of self-connection, whether it's after making my bed, giving myself, hey, great job. Can I receive the great job? If not, then I kind of go into those other things. Same sitting on the grass. How am I doing? Self-check. All right, am I able to receive? It's okay to rest. It's okay to be still. I don't need to perform. Am I able to receive it? If I'm able to receive it, great. If not, then I kind of go into those other processes. And we'll go into kind of those a little more detailed things on some further episodes, but really wanted to kind of bring you guys into what I've just walked through, and especially with social media and today's age where, again, culture still celebrates that. Want to bring you guys into freedom, that there's ability to come into connection with self, to come out of connection with control. And really, for me, control and performance governed so much of my life. And now coming into my 30s is something that I'm really stepping out of, and I'm stepping into surrender and submission and just allowing God to love me and not me having to do things to be loved. And I really want that for you guys. So to kind of end this off on a sweet treat, things that I do for self-care and things that I do, and this sounds really silly, but an affirmation that I say out loud to friends as well as out loud in the mirror to myself: I'm a freaking catch. I say that all the time of like, I'm a catch. I love myself, which allows me to love others well. And I'm like, I catch the atmosphere and I bring people into joy. I catch favor. I catch peace. I catch comfort. And being like, I'm a catch. I attract these things. God gave me these gifts. Thank you, Lord. Other affirmations that I like kind of go off of is I'll go through the Bible app and there'll be different scripture identity verses and stuff, and I'll just start reading scripture out loud if I need some, like, God, drill some things into my head. I need to know what your word says about me. That's super simple. The Bible app has so many different resources, so that's a huge thing that I do. The last thing that I'll leave you guys with is, I saw this phrase a little bit ago, but someone said, stop saying the things that you're doing to take care of yourself is self-care. Those are necessities, and it's not self-care, it's survival. And so, self-care as in taking care of your hygiene and pampering yourself, whether that's getting a facial or it's going for a walk every day or it's 5 minutes of quiet time or whatever. Like, that's not self-care. That is like actual survival. Granted, facial maybe is a little self-care because it's an investment, but these other things like going for a walk, having quiet time, eating well, sleeping good, that's actual survival, and like that's loving yourself really well. I celebrate going and doing extra fun things for myself. Yeah, I am so worthy if I want to get my nails done, like to invest in getting my nails done, and I don't create any negativity around it. Same with like getting a massage or getting a facial, investing into a workout class. I now celebrate those things, and I don't put any control or shame on those things, because the more I can fill my cup from a positive aspect, the better I am. And so just releasing shame from things that are taking care of yourself is really good. I want to let you guys know you are so beautiful. Whether you have struggled with this your whole life or this is something you've never thought about, the way God designed you, your call, your purpose, your identity is so rooted in Him. It's not rooted in the way you look. It's not rooted in if your skin is clear or if it has breakouts. It's not rooted in if you have abs or if you don't. That is not who God created, and His desire of using you, His desire is to be close to you so that He can pour out His love and His affirmation onto you of how much He just desires to see you thrive. We recorded an episode earlier and this topic got brought up, and we were going to release that. And 2 days ago was like, no, that's not it. And I want to talk about this. And Maddie, who's produces this, we were just like, let's go into that. Let's open up the conversation. Let's see where this goes. And we've had a guest who's talked about this before, but we want to bring these topics that so many women speak about and maybe silently struggle with to the table more. And we want these to be conversations. We want to hear other people's journeys. That's my whole journey of what it's looked like to come into body dysmorphia and to learning to love myself. I'm still a work in progress, and we want to hear other women's stories who have, are going through the same or who have overcome. So be expectant to have this topic again. We really want to talk to women about these types of things, and we're really excited to just set you guys free and just knowing how loved you are aside from how you look. We'll talk to you soon, and love ya.